Oh, that wasn't that. I'm just taking this as a sound check. But if you want to use this on a podcast, that's cool.
So, I don't know. We always do that, right?
Oh, sorry. That's more for Ram. I think he cuts them. Do you cut them out? The claps. You don't cut the claps out? Wow. Hi there. Welcome to Director's Debrief, episode 12, longest running podcast I think I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Don't know how that happened.
Yeah. Ram, is it recording? I just heard the unrecord voice. Oh, cool. Technical difficulties.
So, well done.
Really?
For the longest.
Oh, so right back into it, man.
I don't know how we made it here, to be honest.
You've been a part of like some big podcasts though, no?
I've featured on them. You're making me sound like I was invited.
Because I listened to them and because the production value was so high.
Yeah.
And it was it an American chap that you were interviewed by?
Right.
And he was so enthusiastic about it. I don't know, it was a really good vibe.
He was podcast goals. Before the podcast, I had to make sure all my lighting was well, my mic checks, all of that. Like there were so many tutorial videos around it.
Okay.
So that's when I knew, like, okay, this guy wasn't going to just let me.
What was that called? Plug
up my influence. Yeah.
Up my influence.
It's very much about WellP and what we do. We'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, it's very much about what we do. Surprisingly, I sound pretty coherent in it as well. So if you want to know what WellP do. I think it's definitely not out of date as such.
Yeah, we don't talk about it much. Ram's just released a really awesome video about FBA.
Mm-hmm.
What
is FBA? What is FBA?
FBA, I'm so glad. Ram, you want to take over here? No? Okay. Fulfilled by Amazon. Great little service.
Yeah.
Some of the guys here have been using it for a short while.
Mm-hmm.
I know, for people who don't know, I'm being facetious. Like, it's a huge part of our business. Yeah. It's this fantastic service that Ram describes so eloquently that I don't want to step on his toes.
Mm-hmm.
But in a nutshell, you send your products to Amazon and they leverage their huge, amazing fulfillment network.
Yeah.
And they deliver it. So you order it from Amazon, you might see sometimes fulfilled by Amazon.
Yeah.
And that's why Amazon will deliver it for you. It's you or me or Bob, as we like to refer to a lot.
Yeah.
Bob.
I love Bob. Yeah.
Down the road, it's always Bob down the road or in his garage, can sell a bunch of stuff on Amazon by shipping it to a fulfillment center. Amazon will label it for you, make sure everything is pretty and packaged appropriately, and ships it to this thing.
Sounds like a good thing. We should look
into
something into that. Yeah, okay. Sounds good.
Let me hook you up with Rinny and Chris. Yeah. They'll walk you through it. In fact, they are currently designing our SOP around it. Like a formal way of how we do that.
Yeah.
Because there's optimizations to be made, and when it's all laid out, like your dear friend Alan taught us.
Yeah.
You lay it all out, you find the efficiencies, and you improve.
I love that when you say. So you're the guy that pitched this whole SOP idea. We've been speaking about it for a while, but the idea that we need to formalize all of our processes, because if we really go back to the early days at WellP, we've always just full disclosure, clients listening, whoever's listening, we've been winging it, to be honest, for a large part of what we've been doing. And that's worked so well for us because we've been adapting our processes, changing them. And certainly in the early days, you need that kind of flexibility. But the thing is, as we grow our team and we develop them and tasks get handed over, delegated, you delegate, I delegate, the team delegated what's been delegated and so on. You start to lose what the actual process was, and people take shortcuts. People may not understand it fully.
Yeah, you just made me realize we're like on a third generation of delegation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like stuff that you've delegated to me that I've delegated to people are now being delegated to further.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I'd love to talk about more. However, I'd love to loop it back around to something you brought to me at the beginning of this episode. We were just chatting to Rinny, someone from the accounts and data team, and she was saying that she was curious about how it works, some of the strains that we feel working as a decentralized platform. First off, do you mind explaining a little bit about what it means to be a decentralized
team? Yeah, I think so. And I'll be honest, we're not one of the first decentralized companies out there. But certainly I think we're pioneers in this area. That the whole idea behind a decentralized company actually came from the pandemic. It existed before that, but certainly it's sprung more into the mainstream. Yeah. And the idea here is that the team don't necessarily need to have a headquarters base to all go into, all operate from. At the end of the day, our clients are all over the world, not just all over the country, all over the world, operating in different time zones, different languages, different cultures. And we've noticed, being Well Products, that we had to adapt to this and create a team that was able to cater for all this multitude of different all the multitude of different clients and so on, but also understanding the new things that were coming from a post-pandemic world. People like that flexibility. Some people were saying, oh, we're never going back into the office. That is certainly not true. We love the office. It's a great place to collaborate, engage with people, have a lunch now and then. There's ideas that come out from in-person meetings that simply can't be replicated. But the thing is, as I said, we live in a post-pandemic world, and there are so many benefits to the other way. And whilst we will keep our headquarters in certain areas, really the company doesn't revolve around where we are at the moment. It revolves around.
I've got like 20 of these, but I want to see if anything springs to mind for you. What are some of the pains of running a company like this?
Certainly collaboration to get on first off the bat, because some of our team have never actually met each other.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, I hope one day they certainly will. Yeah. We've not met some of our employees in person. For obvious reasons, firstly, but the idea that there's not really a need to. Yeah. But that does, I say need to, but that does come with its pain, that there is sometimes that lack of understanding of that employee, what their strengths are and what they're not, because we give them a task, it's completed, very good, we have a little bit of chat and banter, but that's the limitation of it. And certainly I've seen with the employees that we've got on the ground here, by having those informal chats, by seeing them outside of their normal working hours, you're able to see a lot more behind them and what they're probably capable of. And that's a struggle in the decentralized team. Yeah. How about you? What do you feel?
I want to piggyback off of your point, because I think that's sort of it. It's great. Sorry, you said that, and it was crazy to me. Somebody like I hate to mention names on the book, but like Jill and Irene, they've been working together for so long.
Yeah, right.
And it's crazy to think that they've never been in the same room.
Pretty much communicating every single day.
Yeah.
Most working hours, and they've never actually.
But yeah, just to sort of piggyback, and I think this problem roots from leadership, because I can definitely see this problem easing at this point. But it's the fact that you have to have a process. Like, we're talking about SOPs, there's a point about that I wanted to make. But in terms of SOPs and processes, that's what are easy to hand off. That's where you can manage, or you can set expectations, you can set goals, and you can set boundaries and limits. And I think when we initially were just sort of winging it, we're talking a good while ago. It's crazy to think, but it was a good while ago when we were winging it. But the fact was we needed a set amount of something from somebody based somewhere else. And it was really hard to transmit that. And I think we were trying a very traditional approach of how I would explain to you, somebody in the same room as me. We tried to explain that over Zoom to somebody a couple hundred miles away. Yeah. And the shit just doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. I think you've got to come up with some tools like Monday.com and Trello are wonderful. We use both. Yep. But also those tools are very adaptable. You have to find the right way of working on that. I don't even actually think we use that I don't think Jill and Irene use that anymore. I think they use a spreadsheet now. Yep. So it's about finding what's the easiest and most optimized way for you to communicate non-verbally to one another. And how to set those expectations, how to set workloads, how to distribute work. That's why we're sort of doing the SOP. You and I had some very harsh conversations 2 weeks ago now, where we're like, we're not optimized as a team. Yeah. We keep bringing this new business in, and it keeps just being going, oh, this person can handle that, that person can handle that. Yeah. When in actual fact, probably if you take the components off this person, and that person, that's one job role. And so why isn't one person doing that? It's because they can use the information from this and that. Yeah. And so absolutely, all of this communication needs to be different when somebody's not in the same room as you. So that's definitely a strain I've felt, but it's something that we can actively work on.
Definitely. And I think it's part of our culture and our DNA of optimizing. Because, and not to diss on other companies, but other companies grow very quickly, and then they're unable to think about the optimization. And it's probably not a priority at the end of the day. Grow at all costs. You know, the optimization can come later. But certainly something we have in our DNA is we want to grow and sustainably, but grow very quickly where possible. But on the same token, make sure we're not carrying that fat and that bulk with us. It comes from us obviously working a lot in AI, certainly on the e-commerce side of things. We want to squeeze the most out of that lemon and that that piece of fruit, squeeze the most juice out of it. And AI has taught us that. We've been seeing the results there. And I think that has to do with us looking at decentralized team, because you're talking about optimization of how they work together, but also the team members as well. At the end of the day, when we need a specialty role, such as inventory management, or we need something in listings optimizations, marketing, influencer marketing, and so on, we want the best person for that job. Absolutely. That we can find. Yeah. Obviously at the correct pay and the correct rate that we were able to budget into that. Yeah. But we want the best talent. And the only way to really do that is you go to certain areas. So you can go to certain major cities, and they're kind of honeypots for attracting, and I use this really carefully, but better talent or higher quality talent. That tends to be why companies choose places like London, and so on. But that seems to be changing. That talent is asking for more than just pay, asking for more than just being in a certain location. And that comes with flexibility. Some people want to live wherever they can, At the moment, we don't actually know where some of our remote team members are in the country or in the world. Yeah. And that's okay, as long as they're checking in, working and doing their job. And that's the flexibility that comes with it.
So something interesting there. You say, I use this word carefully, but better talent. Why do you use that word carefully? I think we can say with some relative confidence within the UK, a majority of the talent resides in the bigger cities. Yep. I've kind of had this belief, and that is shifting. That's why I said carefully. But like London, Manchester, Birmingham, that's when you say talent, that's where my mind goes to in terms of talent. Why do you use that word carefully?
Because I think, firstly, better is a very general word, and it's very hard to actually quantify what better means.
True. Bigger pool?
Yeah, I'd say bigger pool, right? Because at the end of the day, you could be anywhere, and you could find that diamond in the rough, right? So it doesn't mean that, just because you're in London, you will find the best person for that job. You could be anywhere, but it does increase your probability. Yeah. Now imagine you're not just in London, but you've increased that pool to anywhere in the world, where you could employ someone from London, but they don't need to be where you are. Yeah. And that's essentially where we go. And the thing there is, it allows us still to maintain a lean company. Yeah. It allows us as operators of the company to hold that sense of leadership and responsibility, but not requiring to always be present there with the team. Always be open and willing to communicate. So it kind of frees up our time and our responsibility as well. So that I'm seeing the positives, and certainly a post-pandemic world has opened and kind of shown where that's going.
Yeah. Do you think we could have done what we did in a non-decentralized? And this is why I'm not saying our hand was forced to go in this direction, but we saw a spike in growth during the pandemic. Yeah. Makes sense, right? We help we help brands up their online game. When did people need their online game? During the pandemic. Yeah. So that's where we saw a rapid increase in our growth, and thankfully we're doing everything to maintain that momentum. But we did it in a time during lockdown. Yeah. And so when we started to broaden our horizons, to increase the number of members of our team, we started to look all around the world, because we had to. Yeah. It didn't make sense to just refine in the UK, because why? They're not coming in. Yeah. Do you think we would have grown at the same rate had we gone with a centralized team? Bigger office, more people in here?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. So I think answer that in a few parts. Firstly, yes, our hand...
was pushed.
Yeah, it was pushed. Yeah, it wasn't quite forced, but it was certainly pushed. That at the end of the day, we had this requirement, this demand, and we needed that to grow.
And we wanted to. We always talked about it.
Of course, and that's it. It's like we either miss out on this opportunity. I say miss out again because we didn't know how long that opportunity was going to last. It turns out it has continued, and companies have doubled down, brands have doubled down on online. Yeah. But certainly, we wanted to enjoy or kind of reap the rewards of that time. So our hand was pushed, and we took on that decentralized version. But what it made us do, and this was a very overnight challenge, and we kind of pride ourselves on quite innovative guys, or certainly in a very innovative team. We're trying to think ahead. Yeah. We're all about that anti-dinosaur atmosphere.
Definitely.
But to a certain extent, I look at myself, I was a bit of a dinosaur at that time, because the whole idea of migrating to this whole decentralized team, working from home culture, all of that, as much as I knew that things were going that way, I didn't see the benefits to their full extent until the pandemic happened. We joked about it. We talked about working from home way before COVID was a thing, But the thing that occurred to me was it was a nice to have. Yeah. And I've realized it's actually a benefit to both the employee and to the business when done right and conducted right. Yeah. So our hand was pushed, but it built that trust certainly for me, and I think for yourself as well, as to how successful that that structure could be for a company. And I mean, we only employed one or two decentralized kind of remote workers in working internationally, but it's worked for us. And I mean, we're building foreign account teams now from our laptops, and it's incredible how, because once you build that trust and you get that confidence, then you double down and bring that back. And I think that's allowing us to grow quicker now. Yeah, on that side. But on what was your perspective, certainly before the pandemic, on this? Like, if I'd come to you, say, I don't know, even February 2020, or December 2019, and I said, Sam, the future is remote working. Where would your head have been at compared to where it is now?
My mind shifted, but it shifted much earlier than that. Because I worked for a finance company where the option to work remote was being tested. It was being sort of pushed as well. I'd put in a request to work remotely, and I'd done it a couple times. And honestly, I've probably gone the opposite of, I used to think remote working is great, and now I'm veering away from it. What I mean by that isn't the people our current people who work remotely.
Yeah, sure.
I definitely don't think that, because there is I think what I'm trying to say is people often go, this is the best and this is the best. No. In my opinion, different sets of pros and cons.
Yeah.
Right. Decentralized has its pros, and we've just talked about one of the cons. You have to adapt your entire how you think and operate as a business.
Yeah.
And then there is that in-person creativity.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would say initially when I worked for the finance company, it was a very repetitive role. I was a fraud analyst, so it was I'm not going to say that, but it was basically do the same thing 22 times per day.
Sure.
I think for those roles, it's very easy to just go work from home if you want to, see if I care. But I've much now taken a shift of some of the things people are calling pros and benefits. I don't know. I'm all up for giving the choice, but I'm not sure. Like, here's two things I have a relatively controversial opinion on. Flexi hours and working full-time remotely.
Okay.
I don't think they should be just something that's thrown out on the table. I think there's some certain things that should be a conversation. Whereas before I was just like, everybody should be able to work from home. Everybody should have flexi hours. Now I'm much more of this side because... let's take two apart. So flexi hours, for example. Yeah. What's your opinion on flexi hours? I'm pretty anti-flexi hours. And that is, this may be a controversial opinion. I just want to say, anybody who's thinking about working with us or something like that, I'm not hardly against flexi hours. I'm much more up for flexi hours as a conversation. It's not in the job description or whatever. We talk about it. Yeah. And if it's something we can accommodate, then let's go. Like, I don't want you to miss out on this opportunity just because you want to take your kids to school. We can work on that. The reason why I'm very anti-flexi hours, and what I mean is like you have core hours from like 10 to 4, and then outside of those you can come in 2 hours later, 2 hours earlier. Yeah. The reason why I'm against that is I'm very pro-routine. I think humans perform their best during routines. Maybe people are different, but I do genuinely think knowing that you start at 9, knowing that you start at 8 is a really good way to because there's this conversation about distancing yourself from work on LinkedIn at the moment, right? Of like, oh, this is a picture of my daughter who stayed up until 10:30 at night with her laptop and stuff like that. And that's what I think the solution is, like hard routines. You come in at 9, you know what you're like, you're in work mode. You work until a set hour and then you're off work mode. Sure. There's certain things that differ from that. Emergencies, you and me don't necessarily have an off work mode.
I get it.
That's the thing. If Ollie said this beautifully on a podcast not too long ago, of like, you've got good values, you've got good work ethic, do absolutely everything you can to push this mission forward, just not at the expense of family, health, or certain aspects. And I think that's where you can start to build a divide using a routine. From 9 to 6 you give it your everything. Or 8 to 4, 9 to 4, whatever your working hours are, you absolutely give it your everything. But after that, that's where you need to create this healthy divide of you live your life outside of work. And that's where I think is the best of both worlds. I don't think people are glad the camera died there because I realised I was kind of going in circles. But to sort of summarise, I'm very pro solid fixed routine. That's why I'm very, if you've worked with me or if I've been anybody's manager, you'll know I'm very harsh on time.
Yeah.
People are just like, why are you so harsh on the 1 minute, 2 minute late? That comes from a long term serving in retail where 5 minutes early is on time is late.
Yeah.
But also, I'm very harsh on it. And people on LinkedIn will say, I see these posts where they're just like, I don't care if you come in on time. I don't care if you do all of that stuff. I'm like, I do.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite a controversial opinion now. Before it would have been fine, but now, of any times, I think the fact that I'm so harsh on, even some of the staff brought it up, like, why is 9:02 a problem? And I explained myself, but like, I am very harsh on time.
Yeah.
I think punctuality is absolutely everything. And I always set the expectation of like, and then you're not expected to stay afterwards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
Okay, creating that balance. I think that's great, and it's interesting how you've been on that whole perspective. Maybe that's from your time as a fraud analyst and your other roles all the way through to directorship, and kind of being that, I don't know if it's being in an ownership mentality puts you in that perspective, or simply just the experience that you've had of running a routine and seeing how beneficial it is for you. And I think you stated it right, that at the end of the day, it's not being anti-flexi hours. It works for so many people. At the end of the day, we want to encourage the best talent, and the best talent requires flexibility from our side to offer to certain people that may be young mums or may require to look after their grandparents or so on. They require that flexibility. We're here because we want the best talent. We want the best people, and that's what it takes, putting it simply. But I think it's a great perspective, and if anything, you've instilled that into me a little bit as well, that how important it is for the team, for everything that we do. And it's a very good perspective.
I'm really glad we sort of mentioned that, because it is one of those where if you are a parent or if you are a carer for somebody and you want flexi hours, I'm very open to it, and I think it should be a discussion. Because I do see the LinkedIn posts. I follow certain pages that talk about this, like, I'm a young mum and look at this opportunity that I've got. I can work from home, I can look after my kid, or I'm a young father and I want to stay home and look after my kids, and I also want to work.
Sure.
I don't think that talent is worth any less than somebody who can stick by the routine that I happen to think is better. I just think that should be a thing where you mention that, rather than it's like, it's open to everybody. This is something that I disagreed with the CEO Jesus that we talked about in the podcast with Ollie, where he's just like, I gave my employees a choice, it's simple as that, done. And I'm like, I don't think that's in the best interest of your business or your employees. You're
kind of just throwing it out there as
because sorry, were you going to make a point?
No. So no, on that part, all I was really going to say is, on the flexi side, there are so many good benefits, and you have to make sure that the employee requires those benefits. It's not just nice to have, I can wake up a little bit late, or I can do this, or I can just leave a little bit early when I'm not feeling it. It's more within if you need it or not, and it's a perk, hopefully, in some way or another. But the other thing that I see more and more is the idea that, look, and I think this was your next point that you're coming to about having a headquarters and having people interact with each other, which we are struggling with the decentralized team. How do you really teach someone the way you need your method? There's something about interacting that you can just say it straight. Even we do these Slack huddles. We haven't gotten the habit of it. Maybe that will change. But there's something about just being able to see you and just being like, Sam, that's what I meant. And you just understand straight away that we struggle with. On the same token, I see that we have this area. This could be here, or it could be another location in the future, or so on, where we have people hot desking, coming in, interacting, maybe a couple meetings a week and so on. But I can't think of anyone that wouldn't benefit from a certain amount of flexibility. That's not going on holiday and taking the Friday off or the Monday off. That can happen if it's required. But I mean, just being able to work somewhere else. I don't know, we talk about some members of staff that may in the future prefer to work from home a little bit during the week or so on, or may require that little bit of extra flexibility, but they enjoy their job. And so many people in the past have had to give up jobs they love or progression that they loved because of circumstance. And this whole remote world doesn't end that, but it certainly reduces that greatly. That, at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want now. If you had to move to Manchester, this could still work. Things can operate in the same manner.
Yeah, no, like I do 100% agree. Like I said, the person who is working remotely, I don't think of them as worth anything less than the person who is coming in. I'm just somebody who, I feel like everybody's looking at that person and turning a complete blind eye to the benefits that come with a routine.
Sure.
And that's what I kind of really wanted to highlight.
Yep.
The other aspect that I wanted to talk about is kind of tags along to your point of, you and me both went through a similar sort of schooling system,
Yep.
primary school, secondary school, college, and then university, right? And I feel like after university, I'd love to ask you this maybe off camera around. I feel like after university, you lose the platform to make friends.
Yeah.
Unless you put yourself out there. Schools, college, and university, you're forced into a room full of 200 to 300 people. Sometimes in the university, alcohol's involved, which matters. But that's a great platform to meet people, to make friends. You're forced to interact with a large group of people.
Yeah.
I always think that's beneficial. And that we can talk a whole other podcast about why I think that's beneficial, but not this one.
Sure.
And that's something that I think is very pro-office as well, is that an office is one of those environments. It's one of those places where you're just plucked and you plop there. This isn't an original idea, by the way. I heard this off somebody else.
Yeah, sure.
You just
act like it's original. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah. My idea, 100%. But you're placed in an environment where you might be a little bit unfamiliar, and it forces you out of your comfort zone. And that is a skill that I think is invaluable to anything.
Sure.
But yeah, that's what I think comes as another benefit of the office.
Yeah.
Again, something that I think can be fixed with regular events, Zoom events, quizzes. I know I took part in a few over lockdown, and I know you did for sure too.
I don't know how many people would love us to host a Zoom quiz at the moment, but no, completely. I mean, there's no denying the benefits of in-person stuff. Yeah. Absolutely none. But as companies progress, and certainly ours in particular, like, we want to offer both.
Absolutely.
And get the best of both, hopefully, in return.
Which brings me on to the juiciest question, the one that I think I was going to say, like, I could talk a whole podcast about this, but I just want to tease at it. Do you think that should just be left on the table for the person to decide, or do you think that should be a business decision, or do you think that should be a mutual decision?
It's a very good question.
Right.
So, again, I have to really reiterate this, but just from what you said earlier, that it's not as if you treat certain remote workers as differently to those that are in-house. Yeah. But there does come a level of kind of requirement for a certain role. Like someone may, this is their job, and actually they can do this in a remote working environment. Yeah. And that's where we would have that mutual connection, because that's coming from a business decision and also seeing if they're comfortable working remotely or they like coming in. If it's purely left to the employee, I certainly think they can raise it with us, but it's very difficult to just adapt to that. There are certain roles that simply can't. I think that's answering your question a little bit. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, you're on the right lines.
So that there's certain roles that simply can't be taken remotely. Again, we address it where possible, but there are certain roles there. But is that where were you going with this?
100% there, because I think there is this, and I think what you've just said and what I'm about to say, I'm a little bit scared to say it, but I genuinely think everybody is too scared to say it. But I do think it needs to be a mutual thing. I do genuinely think that an employee or a worker should feel completely comfortable raising it to their management. It shouldn't be a taboo subject. It shouldn't be something you're afraid of. Absolutely. But the way that companies are either treating this or bragging almost on LinkedIn about it is, we left it up to the employee. We did it to that. Genuinely, I'm like, I want to talk to you in 5 years. Yeah. I really do, because, and I'm talking about Dan Price in particular, CEO Jesus. I don't have actually a problem with him. I think his morals and ethics are top tier. And I think what he's doing is a wonderful thing. I think, though, what he's saying is a little bit dangerous, which is, and again, this is where Ram, show this video to Ash once you've edited it and let me know if this is too much to ask. Too much to say on that. Yeah. But I don't think it should be entirely up to the employee. And here's my rationale. Dan Price always acts like, from his posts that I'm seeing, that it is in the person's best interest to give people just complete free reign and complete free movement. And this is the bit that I think is a little bit controversial. I don't believe that to be the case. Whereby it's him that's posting, I don't care if you're 20 minutes late. I don't care if this gets done. I don't care. All I care is that this objective is hit and this. And I don't think that's in the best interest of the employee. And here's why. I think if somebody does something that is out of line or something, it isn't in the best interest for you to pat them on the head and go, it's okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to express a little bit like, no, you are better than this, and that's why we expect better. And that will elevate them to step up their game. It will encourage them to step up their game.
Yep.
And I think that's beneficial not only in the time that they're with you, but if and when they choose to move on to the next place in their career, then they show a great ethic. They're like, okay, when I produce something that's subpar, that wasn't good enough, and
Sure.
I stepped my game up there. And so that's how I think you start to evolve. Like, if somebody is showing a lack of discipline when it comes to punctuality, you're like, no, I expect this, so that's what I'm expecting. I'm raising your bar. I'm raising what the expectation is of you. In a world where everybody thought like Dan Price, I think that would work, because they'd move on to the next place of employment with the same set of expectations.
Sure.
But I don't think we live in that world. If you move on from Dan Price's company to work in like retail or to work in any other industry where on time is 5 minutes early, you're in for a hell of a shock. And when you don't meet 30% of these traditional expectations, you only meet 70%, how do you think that's going to go down when you move to a company that has that 100% of the expectation?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's really interesting. I mean, if I'm playing devil's advocate here,
Please do. Yeah.
for a moment, because there are parts of what you said that I do agree with, and some parts that I'm just trying to kind of digest in my mind. So, I haven't seen Dan Price, so I can't comment directly in saying, but I'll try and paraphrase what you
I'll
paraphrased.
speak on his behalf.
Sure. So one of the things that he said was, we care about the objectives and reaching those objectives, but the little things, such as being little things, again, I do that little things don't matter so much, being late, being this. Now, in essence, what he's trying to say is a lot of people will then focus their energy on making sure they're on time, but then be subpar in trying to actually achieve those objectives. Okay. Like you could be in retail, and retail's a difficult one because you kind of have to be there on time to open up.
Sure.
But I don't know, it could be coming to the office. So say coming to WP's office, you could be here on time at 8 a.m. every day without fail. Hit that objective because you think that's one of the main objectives. But really, what benefits the business? What benefits the objective of the business? And that could be actually just getting the tasks that you've been given, doing that to the best of your ability. That could take you half an hour, or it could take you 8 hours. Yeah. But that is what we need you to do to the best of your ability. Whereas you coming in at 8 a.m. and there's reason here, it might not be. And I'm just playing pure devil's advocate because
I have an answer.
Yeah. So what's your?
So in 2017, I went through one of the hardest interviews probably, and it was to be a manager of a particular retail store. And I was asked what kind of manager I am. And at the time, I think I said something loosely along the lines of, I like to manage my team very much from within. The better answer to that question is I like to manage holistically. I don't manage right now I manage a team of managers. Yeah. And so I need to make sure, but this applies to even before that we had this sort of infrastructure. I think you have to consider absolutely everything, and you have to make sure that your teams have the tools and resources to do their jobs to the best of their ability. Okay. That is my only objective when I really think about it. I do have objectives, but if you were to tell me, Sam, I need you to tell me the one thing that is imperative to you to make sure this business succeeds and operates as it does, and I'll tell you that it is the only thing on my mind. It is to make sure my team has the tools and the resources that they need to make sure they do their job. That's what I mean by holistic. And so what that means is that down to everything, that they have the tools physically, the right computer, the right technology, but also that they're in the right headspace when they're in the office. Sure. That means, to a very strict limit, knowing what's going on in their lives. Because if somebody does a certain thing, I kind of need to know why. If somebody starts to behave a little bit out of character, if somebody's mentality changes, their performance dips. I've had this before. My performance dips. And all I kept getting from my senior people at the company was just shut up. Your performance ain't good enough. Fix it up. I'm going through 25 different things of crap at home. Yeah. That's why my performance is here. But instead, they just came down on me like a hammer to the point where I left. I decided this isn't the place of employment for me. The reason why I say a hard limit is it's hard to get too involved, because then when it comes to sitting down, like, why were you late? You cannot let that cloud your judgment. And you cannot give anybody any sort of perks for being the person who listens to them. But it is important to me and knowing where people are at. Because if they start to act out of character, I need to know what the character was that they're acting out of. Sure. Because it might not be work related. It might be the case of somebody needs some time off. And I've seen this time and time again with numerous different people. Not even here, like across different employers. I've been in management 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in different places. So that's how I would answer to that. Like, to me, it's not about setting 5 objectives of equal value, 25%, 20%, 20%, and being on time is one of them. It's, I need to make sure you're here with the right headspace. You're here in a work frame of mind. If you're running late, or if you're, it's more of like, my mentality starts from like after my morning shower. That's when I start to assemble my bag and start driving to work.
Okay.
And if I'm, so that's where everything sort of builds up to the 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I think setting a hard limit and a routine really helps you distance from your home and your work. So when you're here, it's work time. And again, it sort of helps you, like, home problems and work problems are very different entities.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, not that it's too healthy, but like it's an escape.
Yeah.
You come here for 8 hours, you don't have to deal with your problems at home.
Yeah.
You deal with your problems at work.
And it works the other way as well.
Works the other way as well.
Your problems at work, some are very urgent, but on the whole, they can wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think your point is very valid, and I think maybe in certain places it's like, come here on time, and then this person will come in on time and miss all the other objectives. I'm like, but I'm very punctual.
Yeah.
I can see that happening. I can absolutely see that happening. But I think it is also up to leadership to just go, no, that's 5% of your goal. I need the other 95. I need you to step up.
Yeah. No, it's well said, and that was definitely the answer I was probably looking for. So fantastic.
Cool. Unless you have something else, I think
we've covered a really nice chat on a conversation I didn't expect to really have. No. But luckily, Rini kind of plucked the idea.
Thanks, Rini. She's not dead.
And it's interesting because it has been on our minds.
Yeah.
As we're developing the team, we're like, are we really employing this many people in another country, or doing this and setting this team up here? But
it's crazy because you and I think have both very strongly defended both arguments. We've both very strongly gone, no, I'm like, working from home is great.
Yeah.
And then I've been like, well, routine is also amazing. Being in the office is also amazing. And it kind of makes sense when you look at our business. You know, there is a very relatively even split of people working all over the world, and the team who work just upstairs in the office.
Absolutely. Great stuff.
How's this been for you, Ram? You've been, I can feel that you're hooked on this conversation. Yeah. Okay, I see a grin of satisfaction from Ram, which I think
we can't go wrong then.
Yeah, I think that means we're happy to wrap up.
Yeah, I think so. All right. So, I forget exactly what I meant to do every time, but thanks for listening, watching, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, however you're listening. But make sure to subscribe if you're on certain podcast channels or on YouTube, or give us a like or a comment wherever you are as well, because we want to hear some feedback and know what you want to hear. So, thanks for listening.
And goodbye.
See you next week.